So yesterday what we discussed, we started working with the Aura, and Aura is a component based architecture. It follows the event driven component based architecture. What exactly this means for me? It means every time you are working with the Aura framework, you need to think about the modularity. How modular you can write your code. Basically, it happens that every time you look at the frameworks, they are more architectural based. So they follow certain architecture. So in this case, Salesforce Lightning is a modern UI framework that is designed for building fast, responsive enterprise apps. And how it does that? It has a different layers onto it. The first one is your component. The inbuilt components provided by Salesforce, which allows you to fastly build, deploy, and work with the applications. These are the base Lightning components, which you can drag and drop through your app builder, which is your UI, or you can also use them in the code behind, that is your Apex. So now what we are learning right now is the first compared to Visual Force, that is more responsive, faster, and more modularized. It also enables you with lot of additional features like the locker services, enabling extended security for your applications and the data transfer. So what is an Aura framework? It's an open source UI framework. And as we discussed yesterday, it is the initial Lightning components or the Lightning framework that was introduced that is completely based on Aura. Why? Easy to build the components which are multiple device ready, not a single device. So I don't have to recreate the same devices and make it compatible with different browsers or add the unnecessary codings and checks to validate whether it will support or not. It uses a component bundle. We have seen how do you create the Aura component. The first component that we created was through your developer console. Okay, so think about the same way that you have in your Visual Force. So what we had in Visual Force, how you define. So I'm gonna call it as Aura blank diagram. So in Visual Force, what you have? You have a Visual Force page, correct? What does this page has? This page contains your markup. What is markup? Markup is nothing but tag based components, and it can also contain the JavaScript and HTML code. So this is the main important thing. So your Visual Force page, you have a markup. You use the tag-based components, which are like Apex page lock table, Apex data grid, and all those other components that we talked about. It also supports your Ajax functionality based components. So components which are fully equipped to handle the Ajax calls. Then to handle the server side processing, what you have? You have a controllers. So what are these controllers? These controllers handle your server side execution. Whatever you want to do, display the data, fetch the data, process the data, that you do on the server side. And those are through your standard, custom, extensions, or list type of controllers. You can use any of them. Either of them is exactly providing the same functionality. In some, it is inbuilt. Like in standard, you just need to provide the ID and it works. While in your custom, you need to write from scratch, while extension is a middle between standard and custom. So you can leverage the standard, extend to the custom. And then finally, you have the list controllers. Similarly, in your Aura, you have a component based development. So Aura apps are built using reusable and encapsulated components, which also helps you retain and prevent the data breaches. So you have the application, which is a top level container. So application is nothing but what is the application you are building? Think about it as the application that you built using here. So this is also an application. This is my reservation management. That's an application. It has the functionality, which are nothing but tabs in this case. So consider these tabs to be designed as the small components in your application. So this is one of the component that is within this application. And this component can also then have another component with it. So you can say this is my component, while the other one, that is, this is also the component, and the outer shell that I have, this is nothing but my application, to group the similar functionality and the components related to that functionality. Now, this component also needs to work on something, to process something. How do you do that? That processing is through, first, if it is a client side, you can use the controller.js, which is in bundle. So you can use a controller.js. You also have a helper.js, which allows you to share the methods and functionality. Or in case you need the functionality to be on the server side, so I can also use the Apex, similar to how you have the controllers in here. Exactly the same way. On top of that, what it enables is it has the inbuilt support for styling provided by Salesforce, and that is called as Salesforce Lightning Design System. It provides you all the inbuilt CSS tags that you can directly leverage for your components. It also helps you to design the components with icons. So the icons that you usually see on Salesforce, anywhere, this is also an icon. This is the one that I uploaded. So I can use that as well in the static resource. Or any other icon that you want to use. For example, when I say new, it also has the icon. Every single thing that you see here, that is equipped with some icons. So for example, see user, that's a profile icon. I can use all these icons. The icons which represents my account, contact, opportunity, lead, or my buttons, to style those buttons as same as how your Salesforce buttons are styled. All these are part of your Aura components or Lightning CSS. So that is your SLDS. So SLDS has all those things in one go. Now, in these situations, what we are trying to build, the most important thing that I want to do is the simple application. Let's start with the simple application that we just built yesterday, the basic Aura application. So what I did, I went to File, New, and I created the Lightning component. So I'm going to build a Lightning application now, and I'm going to call it as Simple Aura App and submit it. So this application bundle now has the application as a top level container. It also has the controller, which is your JS file. Then it has the helper, which is also a JS, but that can be shared. You have a style inbuilt to this component. If you don't want to use a SLDS as a standard, you can also use your custom styling. And you have a documentation which can help to document what is the purpose of this specific Aura component. You have a renderer to override any Ajax functionality for rendering the components within your Aura. And finally, you have the icons that you can custom upload. So all those are part of your SVG file. So now let's go to our simple Aura application. So when you design an application is a top level container that helps you embed the other components. So the first component that I need is, let's assume I have a simple application that is called as a hello world component. So we already have it, but I'm going to do again so that we have the same thing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say this is my hello world typical application. Every time we learn any language, we start with the hello world. So I'm going to build my hello world component. So this component has exactly the same things, but the only thing that is missing is here in the app, you do not have a component. The component has rest all things, but it doesn't have the application. So application has only the application as an additional, component has a component as an additional part of it. The markup that you put in will be inside your component. So my component file now can have the lightning components that I want to basically use. So what are those components that I can use? The first, let's open the Aura component. This is your component library. Okay. So I can either use directly the div class and put it, or I also have a lot of other lightning components that I can use. So what I want to use is, I want to use a simple basic card that will display the details. So it's a grouping. Basically, I want to group the details, and that's why I want to just use this specific card. So what you can do in the Aura component, use your lightning card, and it has attribute called title. Let's say welcome, and I can also use the icon name, and I can simply here you can also try and find for the icons which you can use, either use here, or you can look for the icons directly by discovering from the documentation. So right now I know the name of the icon, so I'm directly using it. That's under utility user. So utility is nothing but it's a group. So if I say SLDS, and let me, I don't want the linter. So right now I don't directly have it. Icon library. So this is the latest SLDS design. I'll include this in our deck as well. So these are all the standard icons that you can directly use it. Now, either you can use directly, or you have to use the grouping. So for example, these are my action icons, while the one I'm that using is under utility. So see here, these are the utility icons. So whatever icon you want to use, you simply need to say name of that grouping colon, which is the specific icon that you are using. So for example, in this case, there is an add user. There is also a user as an icon. If I want education or edit form, enable form, listen, list, anything that you are looking for, all icons are available in here. This is the icon that I am using currently. This icon I want to display. Now you can simply close this. Within this lightning card, since this is my container now, I can use even the standard HTML tags. So I'm going to use the SLDS, that is defining as, we'll come back to this. Just right now, remember you use a SLDS, that is the namespace, the styling for my paragraph, and I need horizontal and the small. Now, how am I getting this? This is all part of here. Along with your icons, you can also get all the details that you need to use your markup and styling. So everything that you want will be present in here. You just need to identify what is the style sheet and what is the guidelines, or which one of the specific layout you want to use, and simply use that class. These classes are predefined. No need to do anything. So now here I am simply using the one that is SLDSP horizontal and small. These are very easily available when you use a Visual Studio Code. Right now I'm in console, so they are not automatically being prompted. Otherwise, it is very easy to use directly when the suggestions are prompt. So I'm gonna say, hello, this is my first, not first actually, but still, Aura component, and save it. Now, if you see, there is no way I can see or view or preview, unlike your Visualforce page, where I can launch it and see how it will look like. So how do you run the components? The component is saved or called from your applications. So what we do? We add this controller inside the application now. So this is my application. How do you invoke this? In my application, I simply need to say importing the custom component. And for that, you use the namespace that is either used or defined by your org, or if not, it is a custom. So C is a custom component. That's a namespace that you use for including your components inside your application. So I'm gonna say this is I'm importing basically a custom component. And how do you do it? C colon name of the component that you want to include. My component name is hello world, and done. Now if I save this, it's saved. Let's preview. See, this is my user icon. But there is no styling that is applied. Even though I have added that SLDS class onto it. And the reason for that is whenever you embed an application, you need to tell the application to use the Salesforce defined SLDS. And in order to tell him that, you have to extend that specific class. And you use extends, and the namespace that I have to use is force, because SLDS is part of force namespace. So under the force, SLDS. Now I'm telling application that I want to extend or I want to leverage this SLDS defined by Salesforce Lightning Framework. And as we discussed yesterday, keep the access as global, so it is available. This application is available to anyone. Now it automatically refreshed. Now see. Now it is actually inheriting your classes. So what happens in this case? The first thing, you declare the components. In the component, you have the markup. In the markup, you can use all the Lightning components that you have. Any namespace that you have that you want to use. If you want a narrow card, this is kind of a narrow card that it can display. You can copy the code directly from here as well. So if you see here, it is still using the Lightning card. The only thing that is different is the variant. Title is same, icon name is different, and the footer, card footer. This is a footer. So the attributes are different. That's it. This is how you just simply can use the Lightning components which are pre-built by Salesforce. I don't have to do anything. I can even use a custom card. So whichever you want. I am using a basic, which doesn't have anything. It just have the title. The narrow card will display you whenever you want to display the headers, right? So in header, you can use these ones. But this component doesn't have any preview option. How the preview can be launched? Preview can only be launched from your application, the Lightning application. So I have embedded or I have invoked the component from my application, the custom component that I want. I can include as many components as I want. There's not only one, I can have many. I can even reuse the same. Now, if you go here, see. So sometimes it happens that I want a reusable components, and that's the most important thing in the Aura framework that we learned. So every time I build it, I can have a different attributes. Based on the attributes, I'm rendering it differently, or the different data is being rendered. So for example, I'm creating a generic component that will display the list of records. And the name of the S object, I'm passing it from here. So based on the object that I'm passing, if I'm adding it 3 times, maybe I'm having account, contact, and opportunity. But to summarize, in your Aura application, this Aura application tag is the root tag for any application in Aura. Extends force colon SLDS, enables Salesforce Lightning design system styling automatically. Unless you enable this, it will not be inheriting, even though you're using it in your component. So how it is doing? I am extending it in application, but it is also being carried forward into my component, and component is also rendering the SLDS. The class that I have used is in my SLDS here in my component, not in my application itself. But I can still see the effect of the class and the changes of the styling. Then you have the access equal to global. Access equal to global means this application is accessible to all users, and I can then also use the lightning out like features to make it available externally. And finally, I have the C colon hello world, that is nothing but embedding a custom component inside my application. Okay, so I have built it. How do I run it? I can simply preview it directly from clicking the preview on your application. So there is a preview button in here. I can click it. Now, this is the most simplest application, but I also have the other Aura components, the basic components that I can leverage. I can have the component button as well. So for example, whenever I have the hello world component, I want to now have interaction. So for example, I want to provide a button that will say click the button. Once you click it, on the click of the button, it will then display the message. And that message will be set through my controller. And that controller I'm going to use is a JS controller. So the first thing that you need to change, let's go to our component. In my component, I need to pass the message. So basically, think about in a situation where you have the same thing. This is your application, this is your component. So if I want to talk about this component, in your Visualforce, we used to have the expressions and variables. So you remember variable. Apex variable allows you to store the value. So similarly, what I need to do, user will click the button. So there is basically a button in here. When user clicks the button, that needs to invoke something, which means there is an event. What is the event? On button click. The same event that you also handled in your Visualforce buttons. On click, on double click, on hover, on double hover, whatever it is. All these events are now being invoked. So when I click the button, something needs to happen. And what needs to happen? On this button click, I want to invoke a JavaScript code or client-side code that will set the message. So think about a message as a variable in your Apex, and I want to set the message as you click the button. So what it is doing now, when I click the button, it basically fires an event. And what is that event? That event is click event. And on click, I need to set the message, then display this message on my Aura component. So I'll click the button. The code behind needs to set the value into it. And then based on that, I want to render my user interface. So the first thing, I will need a something that will help me to store. Basically, a kind of a variable that you specifically declare in Apex classes. Similarly, in your Aura, in order to declare a variable, you use something called as Aura attribute. So Aura colon attribute, type the name of the attribute. The name of the attribute for me is welcome message, or you can keep it generic and make just same message. Then you define the data type and simply say string, and you can also set the default value for this. So what I'm doing, same thing that you do in Apex. How you do it? Public string welcome message is equal to click the button. The only thing that I'm doing is there is a attribute on the UI side that is defined as a component, and that attribute is aura attribute. And for that, I have the properties. The name is equal to, type is equal to, and default is equal to. That's it. Nothing else is changed. Now the next thing is, in this lightning card, let's change it to event, or let's say interactive message. Okay, and in this case, I'm gonna now change it to announcement. And within this, I'm gonna keep the same P, but now instead of the static text, now I need to bind the variable from my attribute here. So basically, similar to how you declare a variable in your Apex class, and you use the merge field syntax to use that specific variable that you declared onto your VF page. So how do you use it? We directly use the name, or if it is an object, you say account dot name or course underscore underscore r dot name. Instead, in this case, the variable that I have declared is my welcome message. So I'm going to use this welcome message. So whatever is the text in here, that needs to be displayed. That's it. Done. Let's save this. And going back to my application, let me just update the preview. So see, my application interactive message is changed. Now there is one more thing that I have to do. And that is, in this specific hello world component, I'm displaying the welcome message. Okay, let me simply check the name of the icons. Let me go back to the icon and announcement. So I can also use this announcement that is in action. So go back here. I can say action and announcement. Okay, so there is icon, but it is not currently loading for me. So now it is loading. So see, you got the announcement as an icon. This is from action. That's why it is colorful. In the utility, it is usually gray icons, all the gray icons. So now what I'm done is I have declared a variable, and from that variable, whatever the value is set, I'm just putting it in my component. I have not written a single line of code on the client side or server side yet. It is simply using the client side from my component itself. Now you want a button. Now I can declare a lightning button, similar to how you use your components in JavaScript, or let's say your Visual Force. Lightning also has a lightning button. So again, going back to your lightning, click lightning, and here you can see there is a button. Click the button. You can see the specification, which are nothing but what attributes it supports. And it can also help you to get the different styling. So these are the different types of buttons. So she can simply copy and paste that button. That's it. So if you want a button like this or this, you can simply use the same line that you have in here. So whatever you need, you can use it. So let's say this is the one that I want to use, the brand one. The variable or the variant is brand. So I'm gonna copy this and go back to my console. And instead of typing it off, I'm gonna use the same one. So I'm using a lightning button variant as a brand. Variant is nothing but how your button is displayed. This is what controls it. So for example, if I say base, this is my base variant. If I'm saying brand outline, this is my brand outline. So it will have the same kind of an effect that usually you see the application buttons in here. So see all these buttons. So I can form them. This helps me aligning my applications with my Salesforce application. So they are not looking weirdly different, or I don't have to write the custom CSS to match it with the CSS of the Salesforce. Salesforce has already provided me access to the backend CSS that they use. I can simply leverage it. So now I have a title that is, I don't need a title that says brand action. I can even remove the title. I don't need the title. I simply need a label, and that label is display welcome message, or you can simply call it as click me. That's it. Done. Now, definitely, if I'm clicking a button click means it is going to fire an event on click. What should happen when I click a button? Otherwise, why would I use a button? And that's where I need a on click event. So this is telling me I need a on click, and on click of button, I want to do something. This is where you will write your action. So in JavaScript or Visual Force, we used to write it in controllers. So in controller, I had the actions. In case of standard controllers, the save, cancel, quick save were predefined. Here, I need to define what needs to happen on the on click of the button. And that's where you mention on click, and the C again means the component controller, the controller that I want to use. Controller dot handle click. I have not defined the method on the JavaScript yet. I also want to, so let's keep it as is. Let's not use any other function. So now this is done, but there is no action defined. It is simply the button. That's it. See. But if I click, since on click is not an existing method, so it says unable to find action, handle click on controller of hello world. So what it is looking for, since I'm using the on click, it's looking for a JavaScript function that is c dot handle click. So in the controller, look for handle click method. So now I need to add the controller. So click on the controller. It already provides you the syntax. So how it needs to handle. So this is name of the function that you want. What is the name of the function we have? Handle click. So I'm going to use this handle click. It takes 3 parameters. The first one is your component, reference of the component to set the context. Second, the event that actually fired this event or this function or invoked this function, and the helper. Right now, I simply need to set the variable that we have declared, the attribute welcome message. I need to set it. So in usual Visual Force controller, what we do, we simply use a welcome message is equal to, if I'm passing the value, I'll directly use it from there. Otherwise, I'll directly set the string in here and done. Similarly, in here also, I have to do the same thing. I want to set the attribute value. But where is that attribute? That attribute is in my component. So I need to tell where exactly it needs to navigate. So in my component, set the attribute that is variable named welcome message, and the value of the message is setting new message using controller action. Done. So now what we have done, we have used a simple on-click event with the action from the JavaScript. This is in JavaScript. See, this is .js. I have not even used the Apex yet. So what I am doing is I am adding a controller that is on the client side. And now let me close this. Again, go to your application and here preview. So this is my click me. What happens if I say click me? Something should happen, correct? So on click, usually what happens? You should see the message. But where is that message? Here. So I'm saying this is my message. This is my button. Now this is my welcome message. But there is one thing missing in that. Unlike your visual force, I cannot directly bind it. What we have said, it needs to understand this is the message and that is stored in the attribute. That's why here also, similar to how you're setting it as a v.welcome message, in component also, the merge field needs to explicitly say v.welcome message. Because I am binding the value of this attribute. So see, this is the default text that we have. Click the button. This is the default text. Now click me and you'll say setting new message using controller action. So this is the simplest code where I am simply adding a controller and event for an interaction. So we have added a button with action. That's it. Now let's try to use the other components. So similar, the same example, but I'm going to extend it a bit. Let me close this one. I'm going to use the same application, but component, I'm going to create a new one. So the component I need is a lightning component. So let's open this component and I'm going to call it as simple greeting. Okay. Now this is my component. Let's first see the attributes that we need. So I need an attribute that's called as username. Type is equals to string. Default is blank. I don't want to set any default value. Similarly, I need to have another that is aura attribute name is equals to greeting message. Type is equals to string. Default is equals to this. So these are my two attributes. Now I want to design layout for display. Now in this, I'm using the same lightning card because that is the kind of a container that I can add the values in. So I'm going to use a lightning card. I'm using title is equals to greeting example. And within this lightning card, I'm going to use a div. I'm using an SLDS class called SLDS-p around underscore medium. And in this, now since I need an input similar to what we use in Visualforce for input, what component we use in, sorry, go ahead.
Input field?
Input field, input text. Similar, you have a lightning input in here. So you can use a lightning input. And now I need to define first the label. What is the label for this? So enter your name. That's my label. Then I also need to define the value for this. So what should be the value? So if you have any default value, you can add it, but This value needs to be from the attribute now for me. So I'm going to use the v dot, where this needs to go and store. This should be stored in username. So I'm binding my username in a two-way. Either I take an input and then I'll use it later on to display the message, customized message. And for now, let's use this. And I need a lightning button again. So I'm going to use a lightning button. Label is equals to customize message, or let's say greeting. Then variant is equal to, I'm going to use the same one, that is your brand. And on click, again, we need to say, either you can say hello, or you can say click, or let's say display greeting. Doesn't matter what you call it, it should be meaningful. That's it. And I'm gonna call the class that is SLDS namespace M and top underscore small. So finally, once I have the input, I click the button. I need to display the message. So I can simply use P class is equal to SLDS, format my text heading with small, and I can also apply another SLDS, that is medium, top. You don't need to remember these. All these classes that you see in here, you can simply Google it. SLDS will give you all these things. So in headings, everything that you want, you can simply search and you can get what it needs to be. So if you see here, it shows you heading large, heading medium, heading small. If you want a title as an uppercase, align left, align right, color, weak, error, destructive actions, anything that you want, you can simply go ahead and search for. It will give you list of all these specific classes that you should use. You need to simply copy that and use it. Once you are used to it, you don't even need to remember them. You'll automatically be able to type it in. But for now, initially at least, you'll need to go and refer what is the style for that. And between these P, I'm simply going to use again to display. So I want to display the message. So definitely it's in variable. So I'm going to use v dot greeting message. So I am binding the variable, plus I am binding variable and using the display message. So customize or tailored message to display this. Now on the controller side, for this controller, first let's copy the name so that I'm not mistaking. I'm saying display greeting, paste it in here. This never changes. Even if you do not have event and helper, all three are the mandatory parameters. So now what you need constant as a name. So I want to display the message, but for that message, I need the name user entered in the input field. And for that, I need to, instead of set, first get the component variable value. So you use component. Where is the variable? In component dot get, and the name of the variable is user name. So fetch me the value of this specific variable from the component. And then I'm gonna use greeting is equals to hello and then concatenate it with the name that I have retrieved, and then done. And finally, once I'm getting it, whatever the updated greeting is available, that greeting now need to set into your second variable, that is your greeting message, so that it can display it in here. So now for that, I'm gonna use component dot. Now instead of get, I need set. I'm setting the value. So this is similar to how you define your properties in Visualforce. So now v dot, name of the variable is greeting message. And what is the value that needs to be set? The value is nothing but this constant that I have declared. And then say save. And again, going back to application. Now instead of a hello world, I'm gonna change it and I'm gonna embed my simple greeting component and update preview. So now I have taken the inputs from user and I'm displaying the name of the person along with the message. So the user is entering their name in text box. When I click the button, it shows name along with that. So let's do a quick recap on what we have done. So we have attributes defined. These are the two attributes, username and greeting message. They can be used to store the value that is collected from the component, or to display anything on the component, we use the attributes. When you say value equals to, this is nothing but a data binding. We'll talk more about a data binding, but for now, just remember, value means you're binding an expression to it. Similar to Visualforce or any other merge field syntax. Value tells it this is the dynamic field from where I need to retrieve and display the value. Then you have an event handling. So on click is nothing but it is passing on that event, that I'm clicking it, and on click I need to perform something. That action to be performed is declared in your controller JS. And we are using the lightning based components. What are the lightning based components that we have used? Lightning input, lightning button, and lightning card. So it is very easy for me to understand how the specific things work. So now, if I have, so what I'm doing, I'm defining a variable, a variable to store the message. Lightning button triggers the controller method when the button is clicked. Inside the controller, you are using component.set to update the value of greeting message. And before that, since I'm taking an input, I'm getting component.get, whatever is stored inside my username, retrieve that, concatenate that with the custom message that I have, and then just display it back. So set. And this binding then automatically shows the new message after the update. There is one small thing that you can also add onto it, and that is you can also make sure instead of directly displaying it, I can use the Aura if. Aura if is nothing but it allows me to display the message when I have the specific details on it. Only then it should be displayed, not every time. So for example, if the message is not blank, then display it. Okay, so this syntax in controller, this round bracket and curly brace, and round bracket, this is nothing but it tells that this is a JavaScript object. This is where it contains the functions used in my Aura controller. Then display greeting is the name of the function that I'll call from my component, like on the button click or whatever I wanted. I also have three parameters as a part of this function. The three parameters include the first one, that is your component, that is my current component, current Aura component. Event is nothing but the event that triggered the function, how this function is getting called from. Button click, button double click, on mouse over. And then you have the helper. Helper is a reference to this helper.js. So for example, if my method is not directly inside this display greeting, the method is inside the helper. So I want to take the value, pass the values to the helper, and then helper will actually set the value and return me the result. So in that case, you can use the helper as well. Then you have the component.set. What is this component.set doing? This line updates the value of a component attribute called greeting message. And v.greeting message, this is nothing but a variable or attribute that I have declared in my Aura component. And finally, I'm setting a new value. So this is a JavaScript syntax. This is how we declare a function in JavaScript. Okay, so simple. All the components that you have, you can use any of the components within your Aura components. Okay, and the last thing that I mentioned, the Aura if, how you can use that? Aura if, you can just put it beside this or surround your P with that Aura if. So Aura if is true, and I'm gonna say not empty v dot greeting message just close this. I'm gonna copy this and put it inside it. Okay, you can also use edit fix indentation. It will automatically fix the indentation for you to format. Then save it. Come back. So enter your name in here, and then you can simply say customizability. So you can decide the Aura if, or you can use the Aura if on your component side to display the component conditionally. Similar to how you do it under your dynamic forms. In dynamic forms, I have a filter where I can decide when the field should be displayed. Similar to that, I am using the Aura if. If my greeting message is not empty, then display the message. If it is empty, don't display the message. So I can also add the name. So for example, if I have something in here where I'm saying greeting message, save it. Okay. So now what I'm doing, if it is not empty or if it is not, I'm gonna simply remove this one, save this, refresh this, see greeting message. But now as soon as I surround it using my Aura F, it will only display when it is not blank, and that is if I say he's Adam, so greeting message is hello Adam. You can also use your simple messages. So see, it automatically is in here. So usually we do not prefer using HTML. Try to use as many as possible the base component itself. Those are already equipped and those are enabled for the responsiveness, optimized for your Aura Lightning frameworks. So they are the most suitable ones. unless you have some limitations because of which you have to use the HTML. We would prefer using the standard base lightning components. Okay, so we have declared the concepts that we have covered is the first one, declaring the attributes, leveraging the attributes in your controller, the data binding, which is through your value. So how do I do? Merge fill syntax, same. For the attribute, you use the v dot, name of the attribute. You can also add the event handling and write a code or JavaScript function in your controller. You can also render the components conditionally using Aura if, and use as many lightning based components as you want. So you can use anything that you have in here. There are so many. I can have accordion, badge, breadcrumbs. I can also have the data table. So see, I can, similar to your Apex page data table, I can have the basic data table. I can also have the inbuilt with the selectable rows. I can also have the data table in action with static actions or dynamic actions. So sort and all those things. So the example already contains everything that you need to have. You can refer these examples and use it. You can also review these components as a LWC. So this component will be now rendered as LWC, how it will use in LWC. So this is how it looks like in LWC. But currently we are exploring Aura. So let's stick to Aura itself. Okay. Is it clear? Any questions? Let me give you an example or maybe an exercise so that you can create a simple application, which we will then use to upgrade. So basically the one that you have. So we are going to demonstrate the base lightning, and that is going to be using all the components that you can see in here. Okay. So it's again going to be for the your hotel management or the hotel registration case study. So basically what we want to do is we are gonna build a component that is similar to how you built it using the flows, where you have to build a search functionality. In Visualforce also you have the same page. So what we are doing, we are using the same assignment, but we are now implementing it through first with your flows. Now we implement using Visualforce. Now we are implementing using Aura. Finally, we will see how you can use it in LWC. This will help you understand how the specific functionality changes, the tags, and the way you handle the each component and which is the best one. So there is no defined guideline. Definitely LWC is the preferred one, even not Aura, but there are some components which are still supported in Aura. So I need to use a combination, both. Okay. So let's stop here for today. And tomorrow again, we'll continue with few more examples and few more additional things about your Aura. So we will use the helper instead of directly using the controller, and invoke that helper from controller and then use it. So we are going to go a bit advanced on the handling. We'll also leverage and we'll explore how the data binding works in your Aura components. So a small glimpse we have looked at it today, but we are going to go on deep dive tomorrow. Okay. So let's stop here for today and we'll continue tomorrow. Thank you so much, guys.